Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Robyn Spizman, and she's here to share with us her new book, Loving Out Loud, The Power of a Kind Word. Now, Robyn is an award-winning New York Times bestselling author and popular keynote speaker who has appeared in media for over 3 decades, including NBC's Today Show more than 30 times. So let's welcome to the show, Robyn Spizman.
Greetings, Marianne. So happy to be spending a moment with you.
I am so delighted we get to spend this time together. I've been waiting for this, and I'm so excited about this book. My goodness, it's such a great book.
Thank you. I think this book, I say sometimes instead of that I wrote it, I think it wrote me, because around every corner there was someone loving out loud. And as I started to pay attention, it was so moving to see how we can implement so many little, ideas during our day to make a difference and make people really feel loved and appreciated.
Now, is that what you mean by loving out loud? Is that what it means to you?
Well, it's a wonderful question. LOL has meant in the past laughing out loud or lots of luck, and we've all used it and added emojis. And I started thinking about the idea of how we have fast-tracked emoting to a little smiley face, which, of course, I love them, but have I ever really saved one in a keepsake box? Or have I repeated that little emoji to myself when I want to think about a kind thought someone shared? And I realized that we have to move from these emoticons to emoting in a thoughtful, more gentler, purposeful manner. Because what happens is our brains hear something positive. We're appreciated, we're valued, we matter, we're not invisible, and we replay those thoughts. And how amazing would it be if we started loving out loud? The origin of this book came from my own personal experience that was life-changing, and I can share that. But I think loving out loud is really, my intention is that humankind becomes more kind and we start relating to each other in a more thoughtful way that shares our thoughts instead of dismissing them or even being buried with them.
Isn't that the truth? And so often people show up to discussions or to other people or situations with their own baggage. So being loving isn't something that is often a natural response.
That's correct. And that was the entire amazing exploration as I dove into the topic of loving out loud. I recognized that there are individuals who are shyer, more inward, they're introverted. There are others of us who emote very freely. Perhaps we were raised like that. But every person has a story, and you cannot snap your fingers to make someone else love you out loud. So what happens is, to create that shift where you start noticing what other people are doing right, you slow down enough to connect with someone and actually create a friendship, and you're interested in each other. It was an amazing shift for me in my life when I lost both parents at an older age. They both died of illnesses, but my father had Alzheimer's. And as he started to lose memories, it was my job to remember how to love him out loud. And that experience was completely, really, it was an amazing experience, because I could look at Alzheimer's as something where my father was robbed of his memories, or I could look at it as we're spending more time together. How am I going to use that time? We're sitting in silence. How am I going to be the one to converse and love him out loud in this unbelievable opportunity, which they call the longest goodbye? I believe as I lost both of my parents within 2 years of each other, who I adored, and I just was like their biggest fan, I recognized that if you were loved by my parents, you were loved out loud. And what could that mean as I grieved? And I recognized the power of that love, that the love was not going to die. If I poured it back into other people, could I soften my grief? And that transformation started to happen while I'm I consider myself a kind-hearted, generous, thoughtful person. I rushed through the days. I was off to my to-do list. And that experience of that loss reminded me that I am so in charge of how I choose to brighten the world and how I move through my day. Am I a China, what's that, a bull in a China shop, Marianne? Or will I actually be a touch point for other people feeling good, making someone else's day, and brightening their lives, which not that I expect it back, but it just brightened my own, lifted me up. So the impetus of Loving Out Loud is truly about loving out loud and humankind being kinder.
Isn't that the truth? And it's interesting when you make this choice to, be in a position where you're loving out loud, how different that makes everything show up. And I noticed that after reading your book, I look at things with a little bit more kindness, a little bit more, you talk about this like appreciation, and it's interesting because you cover some things that some people think, well, that should be easy to do, but a lot of it takes practice, like mastering the art of appreciation. I'd love for you to kind of cover that for our listeners.
So it's a great question. First of all, thank you for reading the book. You are so prepared, and to dialogue about this is my life's work. I've written many, many books, and this book has been the one book where I just know if anyone reads it, they will implement it in their own lives and their relationships will grow. So this was an interesting thing. My husband of 8 years, I married a very thoughtful, kind gentleman of a few words, and he's quieter in that way. And so he asked me, what do you want, Robyn, on Valentine's Day? Gifting the gift-giving expert. That's kind of a hard task. And I thought about it. He's not big on malls. And I thought, what could I ask for that might be loving out loud, which is what I'm all about, down deep. And so I said to him, you know what, sweetheart? I said, how about every morning you just say something really lovely to me in the morning, and that would start my day off right, and that'd be like the best gift of all. And he thought, oh, I don't have to go to the mall. This is awesome, And he thought, okay. He said, well, what about, and the first thing he said that morning was, good morning, beautiful. And I just smiled. And the next day he said, good morning, beautiful. And I smiled again. Next thing I know, there's Post-it notes everywhere on my coffee, on my cereal bowl, and it's GMB. And this gentleman, this gentle man, started to understand how those words put a smile on my face. My inner thoughts, the beauty in my heart, he started to connect with that message. And as I say to my grandchildren, it made my heart smile. And one of our grandchildren, our grandson, said, your heart can't smile. And I said, how do you know? I said, mine's smiling right now. I feel it all over. And so now he calls and he'll say, hey, Roro, I'm going to make your heart smile. And I think what happens is that the individuals that really have a hard time, we cannot snap our fingers and expect them to love out loud. But what we can do is realize how when we are more thoughtful, we are intentional and loving, and we perhaps don't knee-jerk a response or go back to the baggage where we have the same old, behaviors and habits that might not have worked well for us. When we really open ourselves up to what it means to hear ourselves, it's unbelievable how much of a gap we each have in our tonal quality, the messages we give, and are you putting people on hold in your life? Just how are you responding to those individuals? And this book will help you on a different path, perhaps.
I think it will help a lot of people because it also brings up things like, giving the gift of listening. I mean, how many people actually do that? Most of the time we're already formulating what we're going to say. We're on to the next topic, or we're not even really fully present and paying attention.
I think you're so accurate in that response. So in this book, it's unbelievable what's happening, because it's like when you mention how we respond to each other, are we listening? That if I gave you an assignment, anyone, including myself, is, am I interested or am I interesting? Now, when you're interested, you listen to someone else and you ask thoughtful questions like, who inspired you with this amazing attitude of yours? What inspired you? You're at a restaurant, this amazing servers like brightening your meal and so attentive and helpful. And it's amazing. And to create a dialogue, and within seconds, you find out something about them, and next time you see them, there's a relationship, and you actually look forward to going to that restaurant because they'll be there. And there's a way where we take care of each other by listening. A lot of people don't have someone who listens to them, and other people, someone might, turn their head and not listen because they go on and on. So I want to ask you a question, Marianne. I'm on your show today. What one thing will you do differently as a result of this book, or give thought to that you are going to? How will you love out loud? And that's, of course, not in the romantic sense of the word, or could be, but how do you love out loud, and how will you go forward and love out loud?
Well, Dina, I'm so glad that you asked that, because, for me, it made me more focused on, am I thanking people? And a lot of times, we talked about this earlier, we're so busy through our day that doesn't happen. And I love how you shared about how your husband leaves these little notes all over so people can see them. For me, it's about really thanking people and being there and letting them know how grateful I am to have them in my space, in my life, as friends, as people I connect with, because that's what makes everything so much better.
And that's such a great answer. So you're going to consider how to thank people. And what I'm going to do is share with the readers and the listeners right now, in Loving Out Loud, we take a thank you. And for someone who might be shy, let's just go with that, person that has a hard time speaking up or speaking out about their appreciation. They think it, they feel it, but it doesn't come out of their mouth easily. So if you look at a thank you as like paying attention, just if you pay attention to what someone is doing in a specific manner that brings you pleasure, joy, they've done something thoughtful, they helped you, give them an attention. Pay attention to them, a little small piece of your attention. And what that does is let them know what they're doing right. It's just like childhood behavior. A child is more likely to repeat something if they know what that something is. Instead of behave, be a good girl, it's I really like it when you put your napkin in your lap. Thank you. You are wonderful. Look how much fun I'm having at dinner with you. In case something falls in your lap, it would catch it. A child understands a specific, have good manners. No, that doesn't make sense. So you have to meet people where they're at, whatever age. And in Loving Out Loud, there's a chapter on raising kinder children and how to grandparent loving out loud and feel appreciated and loved yourself. How to be a gracious receiver when you get a compliment, instead of saying no, or oh yeah, this blah blah. It's thanking someone because they gave you a gift. And if you don't receive it, then you're depriving them of loving you out loud. And Marianne, some people love out loud with baking, gardening, dancing, music. Loving out loud is not just limited to words. The words are something that are free and fabulous, but we live out loud in different ways. And that's something we can all take note of and appreciate about ourselves.
So you mentioned this. I'd love for you to expand on this. When we're, really teaching children loving out loud, what are some things that we can instill in them to just be kinder?
This is one of my favorite chapters. I'm a former teacher, so I take it very seriously how we relate to children. And they're my favorite people in the world, a child. So it's not that I become a child, but I meet a child where they're at. So I think about for just a minute what they're interested in, and I ask, and so they get to tell you, instead of how was your day? Oh, tell me about the best part of your day, or a part of your day that made you smile. Teaching children to be a kinder finder. This is a fun game to play I Spy Kindness. We all know the I Spy game. But if you spy kind people doing kind things, when my daughter was 3 years old, believe it or not, I made her in charge of a company, a family company called the Thank You Company. Her job was to hire anyone we saw to work for the company. So we'd be at the grocery store, and if someone was really thoughtful and helpful to someone, helping them unload a basket, or cheerful and smiling, my daughter would hire them. And of course, they would about pass out because they loved it. And then they'd respond to her, and they felt good. And they could go home and say, a 3-year-old hired me today for her Thank You Company. And then they taught their children to do the same. And so children being aware of these, it's not just people-pleasing behaviors, but it feels good for the sake of doing it. Like my friend Gail, who has a special needs adult son, said to me, you just sit on the side of kindness. Sit on, the side of kindness, next to kindness. And what happens is you realize it's just the right thing to do. So children learn not only by example, but are we rushing them? Hurry up, got to be there. Too many things on the schedule. So I want Marianne to give an assignment. If everyone listening did one thing today, take your to-do list with all those errands and things you have to do that you just want to check off and get to the next and the next, and change it to be a to-love list. And write down all the things in your day that you love, the people you love, things you love to do that need attention. And look at your to-love list occasionally and say to yourself, have I loved our babysitter in a way that makes her feel valued? Not just by paying or thanking her, but what my friend Nancy did was she takes her babysitters for her children every year to lunch so they get to know each other and she gets to know them better. Have you ever spent an hour with someone who takes care of your children and spent honest, wonderful, thoughtful time? And most people I asked said no. They didn't even think of that because they look at it as a business relationship. Well, the business of being kind at work, at home, is a wonderful, wonderful goal.
I just love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what a great thing to have. Let's get rid of those to-do lists and get those to love lists. I love it.
It works. And it's like amazing the shift. And so now I look at it and I think to myself, did I start my day off in a loving manner? Who needs my call? Who might benefit from me perhaps giving them a little bit of my time? Someone who is job searching or a friend who's ill. Oh my goodness, I just thought of my friend Stevie. She had a shoulder operation, and those little emails say, Stevie, I'm thinking of you. She has a 2-month recovery. And I wrote her husband, thank you for being the world's greatest husband and taking care of her. And he wrote me back, that he needed to hear that. And don't we all? So it's so interesting how we can do what a dear friend of mine did. His wife was suffering because it was the anniversary of her parents' death. And they died 24 hours apart in 2 different nursing homes. One was home, one was in a nursing home, caregivers. And he said, this is the 10th anniversary. And he said, would you mind calling her? But don't say I said so. And I so appreciated that heads up alert that I could love out loud her, because she's my dearest friend. And I would never have thought of this, maybe I would have, but maybe not. And he reminded me. And then she talked to me for an hour and it made her day better. But when we love out loud each other and we give without an expectation of something in return, and we say, wow, this person needs a little, hand up. They need to be lifted up. How can we show up? Do we clap loudly in a play they were in? Do you know your neighbors' names? Do you know their dog's name? Like, what can we do to connect? At the end of the day, one of the things that plagues the world is isolation and loneliness. And you just never know someone else's story. So if you walk through your day with a heart that's open, sincere, and by the way, this is not about flattery. This is not about patronizing anyone. This is about, if you think a kind thought, consider how you might let it out and share it, and then watch what happens. And it might just be something you let go of, But the joy you feel could be unbelievable. And next time you see that person, you might get to know them better. What book are they reading? What podcast are they listening to? I'm going to share with my friends Moments with Marianne. That's not to flatter you. It's just I find you to be so warm and inviting. And that means a lot to me as an author. But loving out loud, we can do it today. Donna Markova, the co-creator of Random Acts of Kindness, generously, she's like my idol. She wrote the foreword and she named this book An Act of Kindness. And that was an extraordinary gift she gave me because her validation was so significant. And she began the book with, I wish I had written this book. I'm so glad Robyn Spizman did. My world stood still. I read those words, and how generous is that? So are we appreciating each other? If you look deep enough, you're going to remember how someone helped you in the 5th grade, the kindergarten teacher that made a difference, the friend that, sat next to you at lunch in high school, the person that shared their lunch last week because you forgot yours, or the person that just smiles and says hello and lights up your day. We've got to create that world around us and not wait for others. So please be first. Be first to love out loud and begin the chain and the ripple, because it will create a vibration and a wellspring of goodness. It's something powerful.
Isn't that the truth? And I love the forward of the book, and you deserve all of that and more, because it is a really, really good book. And this kind of comes into my next question here for you. And people hear about, being, acting with gratitude and love towards others, but is there really some benefits that come with that?
Yes. And the amazing thing that's come out in the research is that the brain actually responds to, and especially as we age, to kind words, kind deeds. The joy we feel them when we're doing them is also something that is adding incredible value to our lives, our health, our well-being. And that is not my field of expertise as a researcher, but the neuroscientist community truly has started to capture that research. What they're doing now in universities across the country, which has made national news, is they're teaching students how to emote, how to label their emotions. And when you start looking at that ocean of opportunity, this is an incredible time right now for loving out loud, because what we're doing is we're consciously stating that the power of one's emotions, that how it affects the children we raise, it affects our relationships, it affects our self-confidence and belief in ourselves. And when we're gentler on ourselves, the thoughts we listen to propel a better version of ourselves, the best opportunity to be the best of us with the rest of us. So it's a very exciting time. But when we know what we're feeling, can label it, understand it, sometimes sit with it, sometimes not share it, then we start to learn what it means to be loving out loud. And we're not going to always hit a home run, but when we're on base, we know we might just be having a better day and creating a better day for others.
Oh, isn't that the truth? And just the impact it makes in the world, with these small ripples, then other people are treating other people with love and kindness. And so, gosh, wouldn't that be a place to live in?
There's no question it's possible. And that we have to start in our corner of the world. And right now, I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm talking to individuals all over the world who are very, very excited about this. And the most interesting thing has been said, that this seems so logical. This is the way it should be. Okay, so my message is very simple. I do not believe it's rocket science or overcomplicated. If you are nice and you are kind and you are kind to yourself, your life is impacted by what you think. And if you think positive thoughts, while everybody understands positive thinking, oh, sure, tough or time, there's trauma, tragedies, it's a cruel world sometimes. I think what we have to go back to remembering for the sake of humankind is that we still have the power to each of us bring to this world of ours sensitivity to each other, support for each other, an awareness of those who might be in trouble or having a hard time, the awareness that a book cannot solve everything. Sometimes individuals need professional help. What is an intervention? How do we love those around us who are difficult or angry or not well? And all of that's going to take work, but we don't go to college for that. And even the universities now are realizing that the mental health of us all, our emotional well-being of us all, could impact the greater good of society. So I'm hopeful that the simplicity of loving out loud, power of a kind word, your deeds, your thoughts, your actions, that when we slow down enough to notice what we can do to repair this world, we each can make a difference, no matter your age, no matter your walk of life, the way you were brought up. You can help us define perhaps a better story for the next generation, today's generations, and generations to come.
So I know we've covered a lot of ground, and we haven't even touched hardly anything that's covered in this book. And the book has so much information, tools, and resources. What thing do you think that we can, our listeners can implement today that would start them on this path of loving out loud? I know we have our homework assignment. What other thing can they start to work on?
Well, start your day off in the morning, and tomorrow's a brand new day, with the intention of today. What would I like today to look like? Because what happens is one thing goes wrong, or we respond and we're sorry we said what we said or did what we did, and then we feel badly. We want to, make it up to someone, say our sorry, and then we worry. If you go back to your intention being kind and thoughtful, I think that this book breaks it down page by page with how to do that. Starting your day off, looking in the mirror instead of judging, the worst of you, look for the best of you and work on that. And then ask yourself, what can I add to my life? My little gap personally is probably in exercising more, because it's good for my mind, my body, my thoughts, my, well-being. And I have to look for ways to connect with people, because I do better with the buddy system, than exercising alone.
Mm-hmm.
Or what could I be listening to? I could be listening to A Moment with Marianne, and maybe that 30 minutes will fly, and then I will have, done enough walking that I got my walk in. I think that we have to look for ways instead of beating ourselves up. That we have to back up and start with ourselves. Are you kind to yourself? Are you thinking thoughts that are generous in spirit, because you're listening to them? So think about, how do you become positive and not delay that? And I guess the other thing that's so important about this book is it talks about how to honor loved ones who've passed, how to preserve memories, how to create and live with things around you that bring you joy, and not all these messages of difficulty or reminders of things that are negative. How do we put love into action? Because love is action. We can tell someone we love them 1,000 times, but when we show it and express it, even in little ways, we create a remarkable opportunity, and it's proactive. So even if you're tired, you're hurried, you're stressed, this was so brilliant. A gentleman said to me in the Truthful Prescription, Dr. G said, when you give something your time, you don't lose time. You actually create more time if you do it with intention and love. If you do something well, it becomes a way to reflect on your day. So don't think you don't have time to be kind, nice, loving, take care of things. I'm not sending you on a shopping trip to search for days for the perfect sweater. I'm asking you to stop now and make a phone call and think about someone and ask for forgiveness, perhaps share that, gosh, I haven't seen you in so long. I take full responsibility. Is there a date we could put on the calendar? Instead of feeling bad and avoiding the problem or conflict, face it, solve it, and build a better tomorrow. So I think that that's the focus of the book, that there are hundreds of ways these awesome individuals have moved through their day and focused on the manner in which their life is going to be remembered. Their lives are touched and built. And I think that's the way I'm going to live forever in my children's minds, is that they know what I mean. I mean what I say. And they will be able to decide, what about mom might make my life better? Look how she did it. My mother tried and was a positive thinker. She was amazing. And I think about that and I honor her memory with those loving thoughts. And it's helped. It's helped a lot.
Oh, that is so beautiful. My goodness. Robyn, we can spend, days talking about loving out loud and just the impact you've made in the world. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
It's a wonderful question. As an author, I usually write books and I'm, a television personality and on radio and all this, but I hope that they'll connect with this book. The book's available Amazon.com, wherever books are sold, and notice the sun on the front of it, the beams, the rays of light, and pick this book up and read it. And then after you read it, put little Post-it notes in the book and remind yourself of not all the things you have to do today, but one at a time. To connect with me, my website is robynspizman.com, Robyn with a Y, Spizman.com. But more than just connecting with me, I want them to really understand that my life's work is in this little book from New World Library. And newworldlibrary.com, they're devoted to creating books that will better the world. And they are all devoted. So this is a mission. It's not just me. It's a mission of this awesome editor, Georgia Hughes, this amazing Kim Corbin, my publisher, and beyond, my agent, Meredith. And it goes beyond. It's teamwork made this dream work. Join our team and let's go forward and create a gentler world. And let's soften the fear, the worry, the anxiety. Let's soften it for each other. And I hope that answers your question, Marianne, but I look forward to sharing the show with my following. This is a dialogue of decency and integrity, and I thank you for these thoughtful questions. You've just been phenomenal.
Well, Robyn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. My goodness, what an honor this has been.
Thank you. I'm equally as honored. You're a gift to radio.
Coming from you, Robyn, that is high praise, and I'm so grateful that we got to spend this time together today. My goodness, Loving Out Loud is making such a huge impact. It's a great gift for the holidays. If you want to pick up your copy, it's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Again, if you'd like to connect with Robyn Spizman, you can at her website, robynspizman.com, for more information. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community, and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Keisha Blair, and she's here to share with us her new book, Holistic Wealth, 32 Life Lessons to Help You Find Purpose, Prosperity, and Happiness. Now, Keisha is a trained economist with extensive experience in the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors. She was part of the Prime Minister's delegation to the World Economic Forum in 2018, as well as the East Asia Summit in Singapore. She's a graduate of the Executive Leadership Program at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government and has an MSc in Public Policy from Charleton University in Ottawa. She has been profiled in the New York Times and is a contributor to the New York Observer and Thrive Global. After losing her husband suddenly to illness, Keisha left to care for her 2 young toddlers and embarked on a journey of self-discovery that allowed her to focus on the most important lessons for achieving happiness. So let's welcome to the show, Keisha Blair.
It's great being on the show, Marianne. Thanks for having me.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this new book. I mean, my goodness, at this time of year, it seems like we really need to kind of think about our holistic wealth.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a great time of the year for this as we head into the new year and we think about, redefining ourselves and our goals for the upcoming year. It's a great time for that.
So for our listeners that are new to this, why don't you explain what holistic wealth is?
Yeah, sure. So holistic wealth is wealth or having wealth in all the key aspects of our lives. And so that includes not only financial wealth, but it includes physical wealth as well as emotional and spiritual wealth. So it's all the key building blocks of our lives, and they're all interdependent. And we need to be healthy in all these key areas. We need to be wealthy in all these key areas, because if we fall down in one area, then it affects everything else. And so that's what the book speaks to as well.
And for our listeners that are new to your story, you actually had a tragedy happen that kind of pushed you in this direction.
Right. Yes, exactly. So my husband died at 34 of a very rare illness. And this was 8 weeks after I gave birth to my second child. So just after I had given birth. And so it was very tragic, very unexpected. The disease was so rare that most doctors will never see it in their lifetime, only in textbooks. And so it took a long time, even for the autopsy results, as I've outlined in the book. Like it was really a harrowing process. And it was one of those things that is just so bizarre and does not happen every day. that you really, I mean, for me, I really had to take a step back to think about, to process what was happening and to think about how to define myself and how to live my life going forward. It was just one of those things that you just really had to stop and take stock of your life and where it was going because of how sudden, how tragic it was, just the unknown and the uncertainty surrounding the whole thing. And so, you know, in the book, like I talk about that whole process and, you know, where it's led me to today, which is this framework, you know, the holistic wealth mindset and the holistic wealth method that I've come up with, which is so much a part of how I got through this.
Well, I know a lot of people go through tragedy. I'm so sorry for your loss and what you went through. And it seems like it was everything at the same time. You know, when you read your story and you hear about it, it was just like you were so bombarded with so much.
Yes, no, exactly. It definitely felt like that for so many reasons. You know, widowhood at that age, at 31, is not something that happens every day, and so it affects everything as it would for anyone. But for someone in that age group, where you're just building a life, you're just starting a family, and that happens, it creates a lot of different obstacles and difficulties. And not only that, but trying to juggle a career and building a career at the same time. And that happening and the fallout with that, you know, like if we're not careful, it can set us back for a lifetime. And so I thought, no, like I when I came through it and I, you know, had the time to think, I thought, no, I need to put this in a framework because I think it's so important for women, especially, of course, for anyone, but, you know, for women just having kids and going through various life stages and for anyone with setbacks, but it can lead to long-term setbacks. And that's what we don't want. We want to be able to pick up and we want to, you know, be able to live a purposeful life even after that. And that's what the book really speaks to. And that's what I want the story to be about. So yes, like all of us will encounter grief and the death of a loved one at some time. But I wanted my story and the story of the book to be more than that. I wanted it to transcend it to the point where, okay, so yes, we're going to experience this, but how can we live through it? And how can we embrace a mindset and a framework that will help us prosper afterwards and that will help us get us through the rest of our lives and having the impact that we want on humanity and for our families and so forth. So that's kind of, you know, what the book speaks to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really gives a roadmap for, you know, people to move from where they're at, where when they have tragedy or all the unexpected things happen at the same time, how to move forward. One of the things I really appreciated in your book, you talk about a personal mission and kind of crafting that. And I'd like for you to share with our listeners what that is and why that's important.
Yeah, so yes, like that's one of my favorite parts of the book. And it's because, you know, like we go through these setbacks, whatever it is. It could be an illness, it could be a divorce, it could be a job loss, it could be anything like that. And then we find ourselves in this state where, you know, we think about the setback and it's easy to start comparing ourselves to others. It's easy to start looking at someone else's journey and saying, why is mine this way? It's easy to start cultivating a negative script surrounding our lives. And that's what I realized with setbacks. And one that the reason why that chapter is so important is because defining that mission and defining that personal mission statement helps us to overcome that, because then we realize that, you know, and I talk about, you know, in the book, our values and our mission. You realize that in defining this, it's in line with our values and it's in line with what we want our impact to be on humanity. And it's very individual and it's based on our story of self, because each of us has a unique story based on our lives and our history and our families. And we have so much to offer that's unique about ourselves. And in putting this down and setting a personal mission, it helps us not to even, I see this in the book, we become hyper-focused on our mission. Like, we have no time to think about what anybody else is doing, what they're achieving, how their life looks in comparison to ours. And it's because we can't define this for ourselves to move forward and be confident in our own unique path, and that we're put here for a special purpose and to impact humanity in our little way. And so that's why it's so important. And that's what I had to do for myself. And it didn't come to me immediately. It came to me as a result of like all those life lessons in the book combined into one, because it really helps to think about all these things and our goals and everything. And then we come up with a mission, and then we realize, I can embrace who I am. I can embrace what my story is. And I know that it can make so much of a difference for others. And so that part of the book especially is very important, and one of the things that I've embraced, and one of the things that I advocate for sure after these types of setbacks. And for anyone, I mean, it doesn't have to be in the framework of a setback. It can just be like, I'm heading into a new year. I want to redefine a new me. This is what I want, and moving forward. And so it's very good for that.
Well, there's a portion of your book you talk about being a detour conqueror. And I love that, because how often do we have life throw us like a right turn that we weren't expecting, and we're like, whoa, okay, what am I going to do now? But to look at it in such a positive aspect, I think really helps women and just anybody to look at their lives and go, you know what, I got this. This is not a problem.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I love that too. And it came to me when I was writing the book, because you know what? You know how we have this acronym for goal setting, and this is in the Goals with Wisdom chapter. And we always hear about, in setting goals, make them SMART. And that's an acronym that we always hear about when we're goal setting, right? And so it's make them measurable, make them specific, make them, and it's all around being able to measure your goal, which is great. It's great to be able to measure how well you're doing and progressing on your goals. But what came to me when I was writing, and when I saw, I think about that SMART framework is, well, you know what, like, when I look at my life and what I've been through, that framework just wouldn't, it wouldn't, when you talk about a detour as significant as early widowhood or an early divorce or an early job loss that's substantial enough to set you back, like if you spiraling out of control, or an illness that's chronic, wouldn't help. It helps in certain situations, but like when you have a detour like this, you need to think about, it in the framework of being a detour conqueror, and being able to conquer that detour and think to yourself, like, I'm cultivating a mindset that will help me conquer that. And I can look back on that detour and say, yeah, like, I did that. I conquered that detour. And so I talk about goals with wisdom. I talk about planning for your goals, knowing that there are detours up ahead, and that there will be detours up ahead, especially if they're long-term goals. We can't foresee what will happen in life. And sometimes it's just planning so that if these detours come up, if we meet upon them, that we'll be able to overcome them. We'll be able to say, yeah, look, I conquered that. So, and you know why that was so important for me? It's because I used to look back, after he died, I used to look back and go, wow, I was on a path, I was on this road. And now I'm on another road. Why am I on this road? And I came to the realization that no, like if I continue that script, I'll never be able to get over this. And I thought, you know what? And I say this in the book too, like we can look back on that road and go, you know what? I can smile. Because I know that road was preparing me for something better, for something greater. And I see this in the book as well. And then we can look back and go, well, you know what? I conquered that. And I can look forward to conquering whatever else comes. And it's not easy. It's never easy. But that's why I wanted to put that there. It's because this is so rooted in these life-altering circumstances, and how we live and how we look back at our lives to be able to move forward, like purposefully and positively.
Yeah, and there's so much to that. And you brought up such a good point, because when we keep looking back going, my life would be so much different if X, Y, or Z didn't happen and this happened instead. But it leaves us living a life of regret if we get in that road.
No, for sure. And it leaves us with the same negative script that we don't want to cultivate. And that's why I came up with this holistic wealth mindset. And so all of that is a part of that, because I realized that everything is intertwined, and that if we're to live a holistically wealthy lifestyle with happiness and joy and purpose, we're going to have to not think about, keep looking back at that road and wanting it, keep looking back at that road and saying, why? We're going to have to look ahead, and we're going to have to embrace, and knowing that, if we do these things, we would have conquered that. So we'd look back at that road going, you know what? Look at how positively I've turned this. Look at how far I've come. And it's a framework for us to help us not to compare our own stories with anyone else's, or our own journeys, because they're so unique and they're so different. I think what matters for us is being able to look back and say, you know what, like, I've come out of this, and look at what I've gained, look at the life experiences and the wisdom and the impact I'm able to have now because of it. And so that's why, I try to take this all into a framework, which is the holistic wealth method, and apply it to our everyday lives.
That's so important. In your book, you give lots of great advice, and you have some really good tips on how people can start to achieve like their financial wealth, their physical, emotional, spiritual. What are some things that you would like to leave our listeners with when we talk about tips?
Yeah, so it's very important to think about our decisions. Like I say in the book, and this is scientifically proven, that we make around 36 decisions every single day. And can you imagine the impact that they have on us if we're not being mindful about making these decisions? And so one of the things in the book I emphasize with this holistic wealth method is looking at our decisions by thinking about our personal holistic wealth bank account, and looking at a decision of adding to or depleting this bank account, because that's very important in terms of achieving holistic wealth. And whether it's with our money or with our relationships, like we have toxic relationships, whether it's with our spirituality in terms of knowing how to step back and to refresh and to reframe ourselves, or with the food we eat, or, with our emotional health, it's very important to think about every decision as an addition or a depletion to our holistic wealth bank account. So if we think about toxic relationships, and what we should do in that area, then it's good to think about whether it adds or it depletes to our holistic wealth. And then it becomes so easy to think about what to do moving forward. And so I think if we move forward with that method, that framework, it kind of helps us, move forward on a daily basis in terms of what we need to do to build our lives and to go forward, especially after some type of a setback. But even just for the new year ahead, how can I think about my life coming up, and how I want to live it, and how I want to own it, and to be intentional. I talk about having an intentionally designed life a lot in the book, and that's what I mean, is making every decision intentional. I think if we do that in the new year ahead, then we're well on our way.
What great advice that is, because a lot of times, I know just for me personally, it could seem like life is happening to us, but when we have this intentional component, we're much more powerful creators of our existence, as opposed to, just kind of bobbing around in the ocean of life,
Yes, no, exactly. Exactly. It's amazing how mindlessness, and I talk about this in the book as well. I talk about how mindlessness can affect or goal of having an intentionally designed life or even achieving holistic wealth. Because when we're mindless, we make these decisions that are just grounded in the moment. You know, they're not grounded in what we want long term, how we want our lives to look financially and otherwise. It's just in the moment. And if we go throughout our lives just making decisions in the moment, then you know, we're not moving in a purposeful way. We're not moving or having a purposeful life. And so that's how, you know, in terms of the subtitle of the book, everything really gels together in terms of being able to live purposefully and achieving wealth, both financially and otherwise, because mindfulness plays a huge part, you know, and being intentional about every decision in all of that.
You talk about something in your book, which is called flipping the script. And I think that this is probably a good time to talk about that because it really kind of plays into the whole mindfulness aspect of what we're saying and how our life is going. Why don't you share that with our listeners and just how that is from an experience? Like, how can we take something that we're looking at going, gosh, you know, this is probably the worst thing that's ever happened. How do we flip the script on that?
Yeah, no, I talk about that a lot, both with, you know, like renewal and renewing ourselves and in terms of, you know, getting ourselves out of these negative scripts. And so in the book, like I talk about, you know, comparing ourselves to others or looking back with regrets and looking back at our lives and not moving forward because of that. And so in flipping the script, there's like a whole kind of process behind that because, you know, first I talk about recognizing, you know, how the script starts. And there's a whole process around recognizing how it starts. And then it starts the emotions running. And then before you know it, you're playing those scripts, you're playing the images, you're playing that film again over and over in your head. And so I talk about recognizing it and being able to stop it in its tracks before you go down that rabbit hole. And so in doing so, we're recognizing the early signs and we're being able to flip the script. We're able to stop and we're able to move forward in a positive way because then we're embracing a more positive script. So that's also very important in knowing how to flip the script. It's knowing how to, and I use the word abort in the book, it's knowing how to abort it and to embrace a more positive script. Because if we can recognize it when it starts, then we're on our way to saying, no, I'm not going to go down that road. This is, I've done this many times before. I'm not doing this again. I'm embracing a more positive mindset. And so journaling, all these different things that I talk about in the book, you know, feed well into that because when we journal, we can write down like that positive script and not only the positive script, but we're writing down the mission statement or mission or values, everything. And so everything is intertwined in that. And it's amazing how the life lessons, like all of that, that's presented in the book, everything is related. Like it's not just like, you know, just one part or just a few chapters. Everything is interrelated and helps us to become more resilient, stronger, and to really cultivate that holistic wealth mindset.
That's so beautiful. And, you know, and how often do we as women have a real hard time saying no, you know, and setting those boundaries and being able to really be in the position where we're honoring ourselves. How difficult is that when it happens at work too?
Oh yeah, like I talk about that whole chapter in the book because it's so important. And at work, it's even harder, especially for women. We feel we have to prove ourselves, and you know, and then you know, there's the other aspect of being a mom and having responsibilities and having to rush out at the end of the day, or having to take a sick day for a child, or anything like that. And so saying no comes with all sorts of guilt and baggage. and really robs us of having that intentionally designed life. And that's why I put that there as a whole chapter. Because if we're going to have an intentionally designed life, we're going to have to embrace it. And we're going to have to be confident in those decisions. So in a work setting, that's difficult, but it can be done. And it can be done really well and really seamless. Like knowing how to prioritize, knowing when we set our values and our mission, what will be priority. And I mean, like I give all sorts of examples in the book of different experts who've outlined their missions, and it's integrated with work, with family, with hobbies, with spare time. How will I prioritize what's important in my life? And so when we talk about saying no, all of that's linked, because if we're going to be saying, no, I can't do overtime every night until 10 p.m., then it's because we've outlined that we want to spend our evenings with family, and that we're going to be intentional about that. So I think, and this is, it's well laid out in the book in terms of really embracing that intentionally designed life and coming up with our own measures of what we want at the end of the day. Like I remember in the book, like I say something like, and I think this is in the mission statement chapter. Think about if you were a spectator at your own funeral, what would you want your friends and your family to say? What would be the common theme you would want to hear if you were a spectator there? And I think that puts it into perspective for us, because sometimes when we say no, what we're really saying yes to is the answer to that. And so, if we are mindful on a daily basis of our mission in life and what the impacts we want to have, then I think, in saying no, especially at work, then that will put that part into perspective for us. And it relieves us of the guilt. It relieves us of the shame. It relieves us of all of that baggage that comes with saying no. Because oftentimes too, the ones among us who worry about that are the ones who normally say yes a lot. So it's something that we need. It's something that we need to embrace, and it's one of the other chapters in the book that I really enjoyed writing.
When we look at cultivating the holistic mindset, why is that so important for us to achieve success?
Yeah, so it's very important for success. And so, when we talk about our decisions in life and how many times we make decisions, like if we go out, let's say 35,000 decisions per day, and all of these, some of these are tiny decisions, small decisions with, small impacts, but then they build up. They build up over time, and they build up every day. And if we're not adding to our personal holistic wealth bank account, it means we're depleting it. And, we'll deplete it until it becomes bankrupt. And I mean, whether it's our bank accounts, or whether it's our relationships with our families at home, with our spouse and children, it's very important to build up our lives for success. And some of us define success on our own terms. And that's the other thing too, in the book, once we have that personal mission. But when you look at money, for instance, which is a big part of the book and a big part of achieving holistic wealth, we have to be very mindful about our money decisions and how we spend and how we save. In the book, I talk about embracing your own financial identity. And that's so important, because a lot of us, we start our lives with purchasing big items with a significant other, with a spouse, right? Like the first home, the wedding, the car. And so we transition into adulthood not having fully gained a sense of our own personal financial identity. So that's also something I talk about in the book that's critical for success. Because then, once we embrace that, then, we've defined for ourselves, what are some of the things I will splurge on? What are some of the things I'll save on? And then when we define that, then we're so much more confident in it and in what we're doing, Like I also say this, like if you're constantly thinking, what would someone else think about what I'm doing, about how I'm spending my money, about how I'm investing, then it means you haven't fully developed that personal financial identity. It's still based on what others think, and that's not what you want. You want to move forward confident in your investing and your saving strategies. And so in doing that, you really have to define that for yourself. And so that's also a critical part of it. And so every single part, and there are chapters and sub-chapters, like, what I'm talking about, like a piece of one chapter, that's so critical. And all of these insights came to me because of what happened to me. And I realized that most of us women, we transition with a significant other, and we really haven't defined this for ourselves. And it doesn't mean we're bad at money. And it doesn't mean, because I'm a trained economist, but I've only had to think about these things because of what happened to me. And so I'm able to impart these to everyone else who it hasn't happened to yet, so that we can live better lives. And so I'm a deep thinker. I go way deeper than lots of people do with issues and, philosophy and things in life. And for what it's worth, like I've come up with this, and I really feel like it's that framework that we need to move forward. Because after my husband died, like I found myself doing it too. Like I'd say, I wonder what he'd think if he saw me buying this. I wonder what he'd think if he saw me. And I said, you know what? Like we need to develop our own personal financial identities. Because once you develop that, it's not rooted in what others think. And it's not rooted in how your parents used to spend or used to save. You're free from all of that to embrace what you want as a personal financial identity. And it's based on your mission. It's based on your values. It's all intertwined. And so everything in the book connects in a way that really drives this for us. And as we head into a new year, it's so important. So important. I would impress upon everyone to embrace this, to try to get a copy, to read it, and really think about what you want moving forward. Because it's a good time to do this. And it's not based on whether you've had a setback or anything. It's based on what you want going forward for your life. And so it's a really good time to do that now.
Yeah, what a perfect time this is. It's great as a gift, Holistic Wealth. Keisha, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Yeah, so my website is KeishaBlair.com. There are lots of resources there. People can sign up for the newsletter, and there are also resources there that people can download to help them on their holistic wealth journey. And I'm available on social media. Like I love hearing from readers. So please do connect with me. I am at Keisha O'Blair for Twitter and for Instagram and for Facebook. And I would love hearing about your journeys on achieving holistic wealth. It would mean the world to hear how readers are implementing it, what their thoughts are, what areas they're struggling with. And I'd love to hear that. So on the website, on social media, and, readers can also email me at info@KeishaBlair.com if they want to get through to me directly.
Well, Keisha, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
And thanks for having me. It was great connecting with your audience on the show. It was great connecting, and I'm happy that I was able to discuss this very important topic.
Well, Keisha, I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story. I know part of it's a really difficult share. We do appreciate you coming and doing that with us here today. And of course, talking about your new book, Holistic Wealth, 32 Life Lessons to Help You Find Purpose, Prosperity, and Happiness. Holistic Wealth is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.